Apple did not just upgrade Siri. It just reopened the assistant war on its own terms. For years, Siri had a weird role in tech culture. It was everywhere, but it was rarely the assistant people got excited about. Siri could set timers, send messages, answer simple questions, and control smart home gear, but it never really felt like the future. It felt like an early lead that slowly turned into background infrastructure. Then ChatGPT happened. Then Gemini happened. Then the entire AI market shifted from voice commands toward assistants that could reason, summarize, write, plan, search, and help across many kinds of work. That changed the standard. Once people got used to asking an AI to explain a contract, rewrite an email, brainstorm a trip, or debug a spreadsheet, the old idea of an assistant started to look tiny. The new question was no longer, can my phone hear me? The new question became, can my assistant understand me, understand my context, and actually help me complete the next step? That is the backdrop for Siri AI. At WWDC in June 2026, Apple did not pitch this as a little assistant refresh. Apple pitched it as the next generation of Apple intelligence, with Siri AI as a central interface layer. And that matters, because Apple is not trying to win by copying the exact shape of ChatGPT. Apple is trying to win by turning the entire Apple ecosystem into the assistant advantage. That is the key lens for this story. If you only look at the surface, the headline is simple. Siri AI is more conversational. It has broader world knowledge. It understands personal context. It has on-screen awareness. It works more deeply across devices and apps. Those features are meaningful, but they are not the deepest story. The deeper story is that Apple wants the assistant to stop being a separate destination and start becoming an ambient layer on top of your devices, your apps, your messages, your files, your photos, your habits, and your preferences. That is a much stronger position than just building a chatbot. A chatbot can be smart in the abstract, but the assistant people keep using every day usually wins for a different reason. It knows where you are, what device you are on, which app you are looking at, which people matter in your communication flow, what documents you touched recently, what meetings are coming up, and what you are probably trying to do next. That is why Apple's emphasis on personal context matters so much. In Apple's own framing, Siri AI can surface relevant information from messages, emails, photos, and more. It can understand what is on your screen. It can respond in a more natural, conversational way. And it can do that while sitting inside products that already define a huge amount of everyday digital behavior. That combination is powerful, because the real moat in assistance may not be role model intelligence alone. It may be trusted context plus execution. Anyone can make a demo that sounds impressive for 30 seconds. The hard part is making an assistant useful at 8:17 in the morning when someone is juggling texts, a calendar, travel info, an unfinished draft, and 3 open apps. That is where platform integration matters, and Apple has more built-in surface area there than almost anyone. Now, this is where the privacy story comes in. Apple is not presenting Siri AI as just another cloud brain with access to your life. It is presenting the system as part of a privacy-centered architecture. That framing is not optional for Apple. It is core to the product strategy. Apple needs users to believe that the more personal Siri becomes, the more safely that personal data is being handled. This is important, because the whole assistant market is moving toward deeper memory, more inference, and broader action-taking. As assistants become more useful, they also become more intimate. They start handling not just requests, but patterns. Not just facts, but routines. Not just files, but relationships and priorities. That makes trust a product feature, not a side note. Apple's bet is that privacy can become an adoption accelerant, not just a compliance shield. If people trust the assistant more, they may be willing to let it do more. If they let it do more, the assistant becomes stickier. And if it becomes stickier inside Apple's ecosystem, that strengthens the overall platform. This is why Siri AI is also a business story. Apple does not need Siri AI to win every model benchmark headline. Apple needs Siri AI to make the iPhone, Mac, iPad, Watch, and Vision ecosystem feel more cohesive, more useful, and harder to leave. That is the classic Apple move. Take a technology wave that looks chaotic in the market, then reshape it into a product advantage that feels integrated, polished, and natively tied to existing hardware and services. Meanwhile, the competition is not standing still. Google is pushing AI mode in search, Gemini across products, and broader agentic capabilities. OpenAI is training users to think of an assistant as a universal collaborator. Microsoft wants AI tied into work, files, meetings, and enterprise habits. Meta keeps building AI into communication and discovery surfaces, so the race is not just about who has the smartest model. It is about who owns the daily loop, who gets asked first, who gets trusted with context, who can turn a suggestion into an action without breaking the flow. Apple's version of that race is different. It is less about being the open web AI layer for everything, and more about being the high-trust personal layer across your own devices. That can be a huge strength. It can also be a limitation. The strength is obvious. Apple can make the experience feel native. It can coordinate across devices. It can keep the interface elegant. It can reduce friction because it already controls so much of the stack. The limitation is that Apple has to prove the assistant is not just nicely integrated, but genuinely excellent. Consumers have heard the promise of a better Siri for years, so there is emotional baggage here. Apple is not launching into a neutral market. It is launching into a market where many people already associate Siri with inconsistency. That means expectations are high. Now add the EU delay, and the story becomes even more revealing. Apple said Siri AI would not ship in the European Union with the release of iOS 27 and iPadOS 27. Because of issues tied to the Digital Markets Act. That turns this from a product launch into a regulation story too. Why does that matter? Because it shows that the future of assistance is not only about intelligence, it is about who gets to combine intelligence, platform access, personal data, and interoperability under what rules. If regulators believe a deeply integrated assistant creates competitive lock-in or unfair control, then the assistant race starts colliding with antitrust and platform governance questions. And Apple knows that. So Siri AI is not just a consumer feature. It is a test of how far a platform owner can push contextual intelligence, while still defending its privacy and ecosystem model to regulators. For developers, this also matters. Apple paired the assistant story with broader intelligence frameworks and tooling. That suggests Apple does not want Siri AI to be a bolt-on novelty. It wants intelligence to become a deeper layer of the app ecosystem. If that works, then the most important outcome may not be one viral Siri demo. It may be thousands of small moments where apps become easier to navigate, easier to automate, and easier to understand because the assistant layer sits more naturally above them. For users, the practical question is simpler. Will this actually save time? Will it reduce app friction? Will it make phones and computers feel less like folders you manage manually and more like systems that understand what you are trying to do? That is the bar. Not whether Siri sounds charming, not whether the keynote demo looked smooth, not whether the phrase Apple Intelligence trends on launch week. The real test is whether people start using Siri AI for more than timers and novelty queries. If the answer becomes yes, then Apple has done something important. It has turned the assistant from a sidelined feature into a habit-forming control layer for personal computing. If the answer stays no, then Siri AI will still matter, but mostly as proof that the assistant race now touches every major platform whether they are ready or not. My read is that Apple finally understands the right battlefield. The assistant war is not about talking the longest. It is about being the most useful at the moment of intent. That means context, trust, action, and integration matter more than theatrical intelligence alone. And on that battlefield, Apple has a real chance. Not because Siri was always ahead, but because Apple may be one of the few companies with enough device reach, user trust, and system control to make personal AI feel less like a destination and more like a built-in capability. That is why Siri AI matters. It is not just Siri becoming smarter. It is Apple trying to redefine what an assistant is supposed to be in the post-ChatGPT era. And if that works, the winner may not be the loudest AI product. It may be the one that quietly becomes the default layer between you and the rest of your digital life. Before we wrap, the important thing to remember about why Siri AI is Apple's real answer to ChatGPT era assistants is that the winning teams will not treat AI as one isolated feature. They will treat it as operating leverage that must fit real work, real permissions, real review paths, and real business priorities.